Okay, and here is part 2 of the video. I'm going to bring up the game again so I can show you the other part of it. Why can't I find... That's fine, teal. Here it is. Add. Screen capture. I'll hit player 1, move around, and then I'll show you here is when you can die and come back and then start a game again. So I'm just going to kill some of these things. The error might again cause itself to happen because you're running in with something that it would be on the screen. Not sure all the details of it since this problem just happened. A little bit ago as I was adding one bit of code because the sound wasn't playing for the critters upon entering the player's mode. I fixed that, but then this other problem arose. So I'll run into this spider. Yeah, it looks like the fix that it happens is that when you kill the spider, though, it will actually stop the noise from happening, for whatever reason. And then that was the other bug that I was talking about it happening, is that it was, so the noise is still going. I know you can still hear the ticks of the centipede, but I'm now back in attractor mode and he bounces back and forth. And then I can start the game again and it will go back into the normal cycle, so I'll hit 1 and it remakes the centipede field and everything else is still there. For some reason, I also was looking into the flea can drop mushrooms still on that top row, even though I thought I had set it to not to, and every time I was messing with it, it kept messing up something else. And then once again back into attractor mode. I know I talked over those things a couple of times, but as I was saying, for some reason it's not minusing whenever all of it is being minused, but then it is keeping it there, or you can stop it from happening once you get rid of a critter of that same type. That noise will just keep happening. And And like I said, it keeps playing noise in the loud stride, but that was stuff that I knew was there, but I didn't understand or quite figure out how to fix it. So here's my Centipede class, just my base Centipede. It in the header, it takes in the things that it needs. Has all these functions that are set to public, and all the variables are protected because it is a derived class, or it is the base of a derived class for the Centipede body and the Centipede head. And then has pointers so it can set the Centipede correctly. And in the CPP, it has its constructor for its stuff and a specialized constructor for some other things. More things to actually make it. The major things in here: the movement update, which keeps the thing moving every 16 frames, and then setting the pointers so that the other bodies know how to use it, and then the spawn head gets called once, I believe it is a head dies, spawn head gets called so it can make the head behind it, or the body behind it, into a head. And that's just a lot of using pointers to get that to work. Inside the body, similar stuff, but it's just setting the speeds to mess with the speeds and everything, a bunch of variables, so the head works correctly, or so they follow the head. In the update, it's just every 16 frames it updates so it can figure out what it wants to be in terms of how smooth it rotates and does all of that. The body also has a reset variable for when it dies. It resets all the variables. And the initialize for when it needs to make more. The Centipede head has a bunch of stuff in it, because in this is where I needed to do a front check and do collisions with the bullets. The mushrooms aren't there. The collision with the mushrooms are not there anymore. I had taken that out. And then it needs to also spawn bodies and have it initialized. So here, it does everything it needs to do in the constructor. In the update, it checks every 16 frames, which is what grid offset is. So it can check for that. This was all stuff that I'd commented out that I didn't do. But the draw, the destroy, the collision with mushroom CS, there's nothing there. And then there's the collision with the bullet. Front head check. Checks the thing ahead of it so it knows if it needs to turn and what way it needs to do that, or if it's poison, so it can go straight down and whatnot. It's a lot of just big nasty if statements that are probably could have been split up in an easier way, but this was the way that I had it to work. This just checks if the position that I'll get to once I talk about the mushroom is not empty. It knows where to go, or if it's poison, it knows what it is. And spawn body is if the head dies, it spawns the body. Or yes, it spawns the body. It spawns bodies to follow the head. Excuse me on that one. And then the initialize statement again. And then something that I forgot to show you was the loadout resources. How I'm loading all of the textures, the splash page. That was for the other game that I just didn't get rid of. And then I'm adding in all of the sounds that are needed, and then the font that we need for this project. So after the Centipede, I have is a death class for when an object dies. It shows the little explosion thing. So death just takes in a position, or X and Y for positions, and there's no collision, but there's a counter and an animation length, so I know how long the animation is. And then in the death.cpp, basically the constructor creates the death sprite that will only live for that amount of seconds and then just destroy itself. So it does a main sprite.update for the counters equal. If the counter is equal to the animation length, then it destroys that set object. The flea, excuse me, has a bunch of interesting stuff. Not too interesting, but it's just With this one, it collides with a bullet, and it has a function for spawning a mushroom and the initialize, and then it just has all of its variables for like the health, the grid, the shooting of the flea, and everything else. The flea, X and Y, doing all the stuff, setting of all the variables, the update, which checks if it's off screen or not, and it will destroy it if it is. Let's see. From here, I should have the collision with the bullet. This just makes it so that the health minus is minus, so it's down to 1 health, which if it is 1 health, then the speed becomes the new speed. And if it's not, then it creates a new death thing. New death, which is what I just talked about before. Destroys the original object. And then the sound manager also stops the flea sound here. From here down, it also is a spawn mushroom. So if the health is 2, then it has a pointer to the mushroom field, which calls a function called the mush position not empty, which I'll get to later, and that basically checks, is that position empty? If it's true and it is empty, then it has a random chance to spawn in a mushroom there, which is what mush placement does, and then a normal initialize. From here's the flyweight stuff. I'm going to go through this stuff kind of quickly because this was literally the same stuff that you gave me in terms of the glyph and the sprite sheet. This stuff didn't change, so I'm just going to go through it quickly, and I know you can check it more if you need to. I'll go over the stuff that ended up changing for the flyweight, but that stuff was not stuff that I had changed. Here is my simple text demo. Here is stuff that I did change. I have an update score function now, and inside update score, which I can show you here, when the game starts, it creates a score up top. It also creates a high score, the Atari part at the bottom, 2 credits to play, and a high score length, which that's just flavor text because it doesn't actually end up adding a life when you get to that score. From there, it also just tells you how many lives you had. This is where I was saying I wasn't able to get this to work, so I figured I would post it for the players so they know that you typically have 3 lives. But then inside the update score function, it clears all symbols on the screen except for the stuff underneath that is being updated, which is the score and the high score. And then the high score will end up, or the score will end up changing. The score will continuously go up doesn't matter how long you're getting points. And then the high score will go up above that when the scores, if the score is greater than the high score, then the score becomes the high score. And then here are just the fonts. Once again, I didn't really do anything with this. This is just stuff that I had brought over from the flyweight demo. I brought everything over just to have it so I can look at it. After fonts, we have the game manager. In the game manager, it's a singleton that basically has a couple of pointers to a base class, which then the base class is 2 derivees, which is the attractor mode and the player mode. And inside the game manager, what it does is it has an execute. It points to the strat, and it performs their execute function. And inside here, it just sets the pointer to the ship. It sets a run so it knows to run it. And then it just is setting other pointers to strats and other things along those lines. I don't use Final Score. I don't use the game controller. I don't believe so. Just going to go through this real quick. I believe this was something that you had that I didn't end up touching. Okay, no. This was not something that I had used. HUD was something you would use. I'd only used the level 1.h and level 1 CPP. So in the H, it just initializes and terminates. And here I have a bunch of include statements for everything that I needed to include. Some of the things which didn't end up being used anymore. But at the beginning, it reads the stats. Then it sets the background color. Then the sound manager plays the quiet strat, so it's quiet during the attractor mode here. Then it creates the mushroom field and has a pointer to it. And then the game manager sets mushroom field pointer to mushroom field. And then from there, we have a spawn manager. Start the wave is equal to a spawn manager with the parameter of that mushroom field pointer. And then start the wave can be used in the game manager to set the pointer to the spawn manager. And then it makes a new ship. And I'm also setting it to the AI strat. And then it makes a pointer to the ship. And then the last thing is it makes the text on the screen. And then the last thing that happens is it starts the wave. And then here's all the collision tests that happen. Sorry for that. And then at the end it terminates the bullet factory. Let's see. Last thing for this video is that I'll go over the mushroom class. So in here there's a couple of functions that are different. I have collisions with the bullet, make poison, checking if it is poison, and a reset of the mushroom. So in here it does its typical initialize or constructor of the mushroom. Checking that, giving it a health of 3, setting mush health to max mush health, so it knows how much health is there. Let's see. The first thing that's typically different is in this collision here. So it destroys the bullet first, and then if the health is greater than 0, then just minus it and then make the sprite the next frame. Else, you add the score that would be the mushroom, and each of the collisions with the bullets and each of the critters and centipede also has one of these add score functions, and that is inside of the score manager, which I'll get to later. And then it just marks it for destroy because it's dead. Make poison basically changes it to the other sprite and makes it poison, and it sets the poison check to true. This just returns the poison check so other classes can access it. And the initialize is the same thing as the constructor. And then this gets the position of mushrooms, and then the reset mush. Upon the wipe of the field, it sets the health back to max. So when this happens when you die, it sets the health back up to max, makes the sprite to be the big normal sprite, and it gets rid of any mushrooms that would have been poison. And that is it for this video. In part 3, I'll talk about the mushroom field. And then on, thank you, and I'll have the next one up in a